on the cloud. So because Zoom now they started limiting us on how much we can record. Okay, so what we just mentioned in our devotional text, for those who are online, we'll just highlight that here we have a double negative in John chapter 10, verse 28, where Jesus says, Kai ume apoluntai, saying that they will not perish. So my sheep, they hear my voice, I know them, and they will follow me. I give them eternal life, and they will never perish. Right? They will never perish. Now in English, we probably say they will never perish, right? To actually capture the double negative, but we don't say that. But that's why Greek is important. So no one will snatch them out of my hand. So the subjunctive combination strongly denies even the possibility that any of Jesus' sheep will perish. So they will certainly not perish. They will by no means perish. Yeah? And we have about 85 times of this usage in the New Testament. The construction is ume followed by the aorist subjunctive. So you can be asked a question like that in an exam. Can you tell us what a double negative, the formation of the double negative? The formation of double negative is two negatives followed by the aorist subjunctive. Are we together? Okay. We're together, right? Yeah, because I mentioned the exam. Now you woke up. Yeah. Yeah. I can ask you, can you tell us how hold on to that question, because we'll revisit this. Okay, hold on to that question. Yeah. This is so just our devotion. I felt like I should make you think a little bit. Okay, so the mood of a verb communicates the author's attitude toward an event. Factual, possible, desired, commanded, contingent. Right? So the mood of the verb communicates the author's attitude toward an event. If I'm stating a fact, what mood would I use? I don't think that's my question. If I'm stating a fact, what mood would I use? Indicative. Let's clap on Pastor Sam. Yeah. If I am stating something that might happen, possible, what mood would I use? You may not know much about that, but that's the mood we're talking about today, subjunctive. If I wish something were to happen, okay, again, I'll capture it with the subjunctive. What if I command something, if I'm commanding something? Indicative. You are wrong. Yeah.
I can't remember that different, but the answer.
Guys, you can't be serious. Because in this class we've already talked about Matthew chapter 28, verse 19 to 20. So they have effective mode. He's under much money. That's correct. Yeah, that's the imperative mood, right? Yes, and that's what we have in Matthew chapter 28, right? Verse 19. Yeah, and we say that in the participle circumstance, attended circumstantial participle, right? So indicative, optative, imperative, subjunctive. Of course, we say that the indicative communicates actuality, something that is actually a fact, the danger fact. I broke the window, right? That's the indicative. I untie, right? I am untying. It's expressing a fact, certainty of something. The subjunctive mood, on the other hand, expresses an indefinite but possible or desired or probable action. Yeah, it expresses an indefinite but possible or probable action. If anyone breaks a window, he must pay for it. Yeah. If anyone breaks the window, he must pay for it. So the subjunctive mood expresses an indefinite but possible or probable action. I might go to Rongai. I might take Greek Romans in May. By God's grace. Yeah. I might go to General Assembly. You want to go to General Assembly? Not like yeah. So the subjunctive mood is that kind of a mood that captures. So the subjunctive mood expresses a thought or a wish rather than an actual fact. A thought or a wish. For example, your will be done. I may go. If I were you, is used to express a possibility, a probability, or even an exhortation. Indicative mood expresses what is. Subjunctive mood expresses what may or might be. Not a mood of reality, but of possibility and probability. Not a mood of reality, but a mood of possibility or probability. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Is that a reality, or is that a potentiality, or a possibility, or a probability? Probability. So it has not yet happened. So that's a wish. So you're offering a wish that the kingdom might come. That definitely will be expressed by what mood? A subjunctive mood. Subjunctive mood. This is the mood of prayer, isn't it? Because in prayer, you're not talking about things that are already a fact. Okay, you are asking for something to happen that has not already happened. So it's a possibility. It's a possibility. Mm-hmm. Say if we pray, we need what we asked for. Mm-hmm. So how come and now be possibility or probability? I didn't say prayer is a probability. I said it's a possibility, right? Because even with prayer, not everything that you pray for will happen. True or not true? If you pray according to the will of God. If you pray according to the will of God. You believe it has happened. You are believing it has happened, but it has
There's your will and God's will.
So I understand what you're saying, Ruggiero, because like in the Old Testament, there is a tense. There's a tense that when you use it, it's already as if something has already happened. So it's like, the way, like, if I tell you that I'm going to give you money, you start spending it because you trust that if I say it, it will happen. Yeah. So there is a sense of prayer that we can attribute to the other. But usually when prayer comes in the New Testament, it's usually in the subjunctive, like in the Lord's Prayer. I will be done. Yeah. But I understand what you're saying, that because we're dealing with God, and when God says something, though it has not yet happened, it is not yet a fact, it is we can already believe that it has already happened, and we can already act in the present as if that has already happened. Like, for instance, going to the bank, spending money that you already have, knowing that the one that I'm going to give you is going to replace what you have. Yeah, because you're going with the word that the person has given. Like, I trust this person so much that once they say something, it's a fact. Yeah. So maybe that's what may bring it closer to the indicative rather than to the subjunctive. But when prayer is expressed in the Bible, it's usually in the subjunctive. Okay. So some examples. Tauta grapho mi diname amatete. I am writing these things to you so that you may not sin. This, because on this side I have to sin. 3:18. Pistos hapax peri hamation epapen hina humash prosagagem to theo. Christ once for all suffered for sins in order to bring you to God. So again, when you see hina, the hina clause, hina, oan, otan, ean, you'll see those later on. Those ones, they warn you of an impending subjunctive. So you see here, hina me amatet. Once I see the hina, I already begin to ask, where is my subjunctive? And you can see the subjunctive there. And shortly I'll show you how the subjunctive that looks like and the endings of the subjunctive. So there is a word that Dr. Sedler said used last week in class. This word here, hapax. Okay. The word hapax like when a word appears once in the New Testament, we say it's a hapax legomen. Okay. So it's a word that appears only once in the New Testament. Now we have words like that, and usually they're very difficult to deal with because you have no reference of saying how it's used elsewhere. Okay. So I wanted to just mention that because in this case it's used as Christ once. So once is actually hapax. Yeah. So lego is a word. So one occurrence word is called a hapax legomenon. Okay. Okay. So I just wanted to mention that because he used that word, and I think it's important for you to know that, because you will find as you are reading letters, articles, books, you will find someone will mention this is the hapax. This is the hapax. They'll just say hapax, and you'll be wondering what is a hapax, right? So a hapax means a word that appears. It means something. It means one, right? But then when you say legomenon, it means that it's a one word that appears once. So Christ suffered for all. Okay, we'll read that one. His os hand again, os an. Once you see os an again, you are looking, where is my subjunctive? Os an, estheal, ton, hadaton, tepine, to poterion, to podios. Whoever eats the bread or drinks the cup of the Lord. So os an estheal, whoever eats. So estheal, I've admitted you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Get dropped out. Okay. So there is nobody has already eaten, right? But whoever eats, yeah, whomsoever eat, yeah, the cup of the Lord. So it's not talking about someone who has already done. It's talking about whoever might eat, okay, or drink of the cup. So of course the subjunctive is a good mood to use for that. Is your screen changing, Rufumo? 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 We know you are talking, but we are not hearing you. Yes, Rufumo? Can you check your mic? So subjunctive is the fifth and final mood which occurs in all three voices: active, middle, or passive. So remove any augments, replace the indicative endings with the subjunctive ones. So this is the formation of the subjunctive. So present active. Remember, luo, luo, luwe, luomen, luete, luosi, right? Now, what you have here is the lengthening of the vowel. Instead of the epsilon here, you have an eta with an iota subscript. So it's pretty much the same thing, actually, when you think about it, right? Because you have an epsilon and an iota, which is, if you put them together here, that's exactly what you have. Luwe, lues, right? Luwe, again, the same thing. This just lengthened. Remember our vowels, epsilon and eta. So eta with an iota subscript, so luwe, right? Are you together? Luomen, this has been lengthened. This in the indicative is an omicron. Here now it's an omega. But the ending is the same. See the ending? Luete, again, lengthened. This is supposed to be an epsilon for the indicative. So part of what we are seeing is the lengthening of the vowels. Okay, the lengthening of the vowels. So again, the same thing in the future. Luzo, luzes, luze, luzomen, luzete, luzozin, luzozin. Then balo, the second here is balo, bales, ballet, balomen, balete, balosi. Lutho, aorist passive, luthes, luthet, luthomen, lutheten, luthozin. Remember what I mentioned? That anytime that you see a theta, then you must think what? Passive. Thank you. Can we clap hands for Pastor Jane? Clap hands like you mean before. But I'm gonna whip. Is that what you say?
Yeah.
Yes, Jane, you got that one right. The theta is for words that don't usually have a theta. When you see a theta, then you must think passive. And then how about when you see theta, eta, sigma? What must you think? Yeah, very good, Jane. Clap us for her. Well done. Yes.
That's a question with that. With the table. I was trying to understand it.
Mhm.
When you say.
Oh, you can have it there.
That's what I was doing.
Okay.
When you say a past indicative and other moods. So it's past indicative, passive, or Does it go like that?
Say that again.
There was a table, this table here. We had indicative and other words. I was just trying to analyze this the other day. So we have all this is indicative and other words. So when you say it's passive, then you say it's indicative, passive, or just passive.
You see, indicative is the mood, passive is the voice.
Is that what?
So it will be, yeah, it can be both. So it can be indicative, passive, can be indicative, active, can be indicative, middle. Yeah, it's all. Okay, so you can see the same thing is happening here. In the middle, present, and aorist. So Romai, Ruwe, Ruetai, Rumeta, Rueste, Ruontai. Lomai, Lue, Luetai, Luometa, Lueste, Luontai. So we're not learning anything new here in terms of formation. The only thing we're doing here is to lengthen the vowel, but the word is pretty much the same. Are you together? Yes. So Ruzomai, Ruse, Rusetai, Ruzometha, Ruseste, Ruzontai. Genomai, Gene, Genatai, Genometha, Geneste, Genontai. So that's the formation of the subjunctive. Now you're going to see it clearly in this table, subjunctive forms, present active. So indicative endings, lengthening of the connecting vowel. So luo. So remember we have lues. So and then a lengthens to the iota subscript becomes lues, right? Lue, the A lengthens to eta and sigma with the iota subscript. Okay, luomen, see luomen, luete. You can see there luete. Then luozin, luozin. See? So you see that's how we have gotten there. This is how we have gotten to this. So in the indicative endings, these are the ones lue, luo, lues, lue, luomen, luete, luozin. Please, whatever you do, don't forget this. It's very basic. That's why we started with this. Yeah. If you forget this, you're no better than first semester Greek students, but you people are second semester Greek students. Okay. So now we are here. Okay. Yeah. That's where we came from. So that's this is supposed to be here. This is supposed to be here. So luo, lues, lue, lue, luomen, luete, luozin. So present aorist subjunctive form of the verb ami is simply these endings with a smooth breathing mark and the circumflex. Okay. Yeah. You see what they're saying? Simply these endings with a smooth breathing mark and the circumflex. Once you see that, then you know that the ami of the present aorist subjunctive. Okay. So endings are the same. Subjunctive forms, present, middle, passive. How did we get there? So luomai, luomai. So again, the omicron has been lengthened to omega. Lue. Brian, you can hear us? Tawani? Hello? Brian? Hear him? Oh, he's here now. Right, if you are hearing us, can you send a message to the group so that we know? Okay, he's hearing us. Maybe he has a problem with sound. So Luomen, Luometha. Lueste, Lueste. Luontai, Luontai. So Omai, Etai, Ometha, Este, Ontai. Something is what we just written on the other side. Okay, aorist subjunctive, aorist active subjunctive, aorist form are the same as the present active forms with the addition of the sigma suffix to the stem. Remember, we said we remove the augment when it comes to subjunctive. Okay, so you won't have the augment. So it looks very much like what? Like what? Like what? Papas for him. So Sharon, you are the only you are the one that will not clap for today. I hope we'll clap for you before we leave. So wake up. So Luo, Luzo, and then Lues, Luzes.
I did not heard what he has said.
He said future.
Oh,
Because the future has no augment, but it has a sigma suffix. Yeah. So that's the aorist active subjunctive. Aorist active subjunctive, Luzo, Luzes, Luze, Luzomen, Luzete, Luzozin. So aorist middle subjunctive, again, the addition of the sigma suffix, Luomai, Luzomai. Luzetai, Luzomai, Luzo, Luzetai, Luzometha, Luzeste, Luzotai. Aorist passive subjunctive, like in the indicative mood, the aorist has separate forms for the passive and middle, but this form simply replaces the sigma with a beta. Remember, as the judge said, the beta is a characteristic feature of what? Of what? Of the passive voice. So Luzo, Lutho. Luzes, Luthes. Men, Lutete, Luthozin. So the accent has changed to a circumflex. The accent has changed to a circumflex in the aorist passive. So the epsilon omega verbs are easy in the subjunctive. The endings always begin with a long vowel. So the epsilon will always be absorbed. So that's the present active subjunctive of phileo is philo, philes, phile, philomen, philete, philozin. AB uses the same endings. That is what I said earlier on. In the present subjunctive, the same endings. So present subjunctive, just like we said, the present tense speaks of process and aorist speaks of default. So the same thing in the subjunctive. Present subjunctive is process and subjunctive is default. Let's do the vocabulary. So and is conditional particle. That's why we translated this. How did we translate it earlier on when we saw and? Huh? Whoever. So it's a conditional particle because we don't know who. So I can say whoever among you, right? Because I don't know for sure who will take the offer, right? Yes. So that's a conditional particle. Archi is until. Hina. What is the meaning of hina? What is the meaning of hina? I said when we say hina, how did we translate when we saw it? The purpose clause, people, in order that, so that, right? So it's a purpose clause. Of course, it's also a purpose clause. It's also in order that. Autumn is whenever. An is an alternative for an. So it's either an, os, yeah, autumn. They all go together. So it's an alternative for an. Agros. Agros is field. That's where you get the word what? Agronomy, agriculture. Yeah. Agrovet. Animals is wings. Diaconus. What's the meaning of diaconus?
Yeah.
Like a deacon. So it's service. The meaning is servant. So yeah, the person who does the service is a servant. How about this word ethos? I wrote a thesis for my second master's on Romans 12, 17 to 21. If anyone is hungry, give them something to eat. If anyone is hungry, give him something to eat. If he's thirsty, give him a drink. And by so doing, you have burning coals on his head. That's the word used there, ethos. Enemy. Ethos is enemy. So Helios. Helios is the sun. Oinos is wine. Ainareo is I take away or I kill. Kategoreo, I accuse. Homologeo, I promise or I confess. Genia, it's family or generation. That's where you get the word what? Genealogy. Glotton. What's the meaning of glotton? You definitely know the word glossolalia, right? But I thought you have Pentecostal friends. And you have close affinity to the Pentecostal tradition, but you definitely can't fail to know glossolalia. Yes. Glossolalia is the act of speaking in tongues. So glossa is tongue or language. Yeah. Glossolalia. Okay. So tongue or language. How about this word? Because you know the word. Which word do you know that's related to this one? Sharon. Yeah, oh, that's correct. Clap hands for her. So grapho. So what would this word be then? If grapho means I write. So graphem is a noun.
Right.
the writing or scriptures. Diatheke. Diatheke is covenant, last will, or testament. How about diaphonia? We just looked at the word. Yeah. Service or ministry. Diaconia is service or ministry. Isn't it interesting how the word minister, like today when you say the minister of environment, minister of trade, the minister of finance, it doesn't quite capture what we mean by this word, which is service, right? It's as if the issue more is about the part that they get for being what they do rather than the fact that they deliver to the people, right? But it's really interesting that from the Judeo-Christian tradition, when they thought about the people who should serve as the people who are in charge of certain ministries, they thought about minister, right? The minister of, and usually when we use that word, we're thinking about a minister, we think of a pastor, right? Because what do? They provide ministry, right? I think it's our responsibility as the church to remind government of the names that they bear, that they may have forgotten what they mean, right? Because the issue is not about the position that someone holds, it's about the service that they deliver to.
But that retelling we have is that even those who are supposed to remind them it's happening. Now the ministers of
they are more served, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a problem.
Yeah.
But I guess we still have the good church, right?
Yeah.
The one that is not compromised. So yeah, diaconia is service or ministry. Evangelia. Evangelia is promise. Epithumia. Does someone know what epithumia means? No. This is desire. Epithumia is desire. So the desires. Something here. We're still exploring this thing, but I'd seen that it has a whiteboard and I wanted to find it, but it's like find this. To figure it out. But what I've mentioned is that among the Hebrew people, they spoke of, they didn't talk so much about like the original sin, the way we do in Christian theology, but they talked about two desires. So we each, according to the Jewish tradition, we each have desires, evil desires and good desires. Yeah. So we are to act according to the good desires that we have rather than the bad desires. Yeah. So in Greek now, when they translate, when they think about those big desires, the word then they use is the word epithumia. Yeah. Yeah. So epithumia is desire. Thura is door. How about this word? So, the word. If you read it, you will translate it. Yeah, so it was. Someone to help you? Judea, yes. How about this word? Someone to read it? Maturia means what? If matureo means I bear witness or I testify. Remember that word, that verb? Testimony or witness. Okay. Again, this word is used in that passage that I was telling you that I wrote a thesis on in Romans 12, 20, 17, 21. The word orge. The word orge means anger or wrath. Right. So when you talk about the righteousness of God and the wrath of God, the righteousness of God is because not the who. The wrath of God is the organ. Yeah. So the organ of God, the anger of God, the wrath of God. How about this word? And the word itself is Sophia. Sophia means wisdom. How about this word? Soteria means what? Salvation. How about this word? Time? Time means price, value, or honor. Fulake means watch or guards or prison. Prayer is neat. Tokos is the poor. So the word that's used for in the New Testament for poor people is the word tokos. 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 For those who are doing you look at, you'll find that it's the common word you look at. The word tokos. Okay, so these are the indefinite clauses that we have seen so far. Or and plus subjunctive we call indefinite. So as os is who, or is where, ote is when. We've already looked at those ones. But now when you have os plus an plus subjunctive is whoever, or an plus subjunctive wherever, or tan plus subjunctive is when, whenever. Okay. Os an poieso, to thelema to theu, whoever does the will of God. Su de otan prosoke, but whenever you pray. But whenever you pray. Otoi, utoi, oi, or caluthentus, to arneo, opol, and upage. These ones follow the lamb wherever he goes. Like I said, sometimes an is used in the place of an. Greek use the indefinite strictly, even when there is no ever in English. So, otan prosoke means whenever you pray. Menete eos and exaltete means remain until ever you live. The subjunctive and tenses. The subjunctive mood occurs in only two of the three tenses, present and aorist. There is no perfect subjunctive in the New Testament. Neither is there a future subjunctive. The subjunctive mood is often used to express purpose, result, condition. Those are the three uses of the subjunctive, and we're going to look at that. So purpose clause, hina plus subjunctive, that's the purpose clause. And remember we said that whenever you see a hina, you know that the subjunctive is coming, right? When you see os and otan, you know that subjunctive is coming. Yeah. So since there are three, can we read one?
Pelan, un, ictus, ina, parosin, epi, epauton. they took stones in order that they may throw at him.
Next.
Cremated in not judged in order that you might not be judged.
Yes.
I go to pro Sozomai in other
Yeah, the film.
there's a few one very sad. I pray this that your love may overflow.
And I pray this that your love may overflow. So either of these, Aaron, Us, Lithus, Ina Baluzin, Balay, Ep Auton, could be translated by any of the following. Therefore, they took stones in order that they could throw at him, to throw at him, in order to throw at him, so that they might throw at him. This is the subjunctive, the Hina plus subjunctive. This is the infinitive. You remember? You remember? That's an infinitive, right? Yeah, Luane, Luzai, right? This is ballet. Yeah, when you see the in sound, you know it's an infinitive. So the infinitive can also capture what is captured by the purpose clause of the subjunctive. So opposed plus subjunctive is more unusual alternative for Hina plus subjunctive. We have looked at the most common usage of the subjunctive. Notice that each has a flag word, an, Hina, opposed, which alerts you to the fact that the subjunctive is on the way. So anytime that you see that, you know you're looking at the subjunctive. We also have what we call exhortations or hortatory subjunctive. The hortatory subjunctive is the first plural subjunctive, which is let us. First plural subjunctive. So dialothomen eis to peran. Let us go to the other side. So there is, exhortation. You're exhorting people. The language of exhortation is the one of preaching. Let us pursue the things of peace, right? Let us, pray. Yeah, let us seek the Lord, right? That's the language of exhortation. Yeah, Jane, can read 1490.
There's a yes. So therefore, let us pursue the things of peace.
Oh yeah, that's the one you're talking about. Let's pursue peace. Yeah. Let's pursue the things of peace. Let's pursue peace. Prosecometa meta alethines, cadias, and pleroforium pisteos. Let us approach with true heart in full assurance. And then we have deliberation, deliberative subjunctive, the deliberative subjunctive, like what's used in Luke 3:10. Ti un iezomen. What shall we do? What shall we do? What then shall we do? You know who's asking that question? It's not the Jews.
Also asking the Baptists.
Yeah, it's the soldiers.
Yes.
Yeah, the soldiers who are asking, what shall we do? We said, right? Yes, sir. Can you read Hebrews 11:32?
Ego. And what more shall I say?
What more should we say? Should I say? Ti un amatezomen, oti uk esmen, upo nomon ala upo karim. What then should we see? Should we see because we are not under law but under grace? Yeah, deliberation. So that first person subjunctive is deliberation. What did we say? First person plural. Subjunctive is what? What did we say the first person plural subjunctive is? First person plural. Let us. That's the exhortation, right? Now we're talking about the deliberation, which is the first person as subjunctive. Prohibitions. Now this is where our devotion can come from. So I can ask you the question: how do we form the aorist, the prohibition, the subjunctive that's brings prohibitions? So aorist subjunctive replaces aorist imperative in prohibitions, right? So I think we've already talked about the process and default, positive, present imperative, negative, present imperative plus may, positive aorist imperative, negative aorist subjunctive plus may. No, sorry, I got you confused. This is just prohibitions, so it's not double negative, not yet the double negative. It's on account of this. So do not bring us to testing. That do not say in your heart we will go up to heaven. Jesus sent them to call saying, do not go out into the road of the Gentiles. Yeah, so all these are subjunctive. Me eisen nekes, me apes, me apeltheten, me eseltheten. So do not go out, do not enter to the city of the Samaritans. Yeah, this is the emphatic negative future. The emphatic negative future. So the question that I was saying could be asked is, how do you form the emphatic negative future? It's ume plus aorist subjunctive equal emphatic negative future. Yeah, that's what we had in the devotion. They shall not perish, right? So what other examples do we have here? Amen lego humi, oti u me parothe genia out there. Truly I tell you that this generation will not, definitely not pass away. That will not happen until the kingdom of God comes, right? Let's look at this alone. Ume ekbalo. The one who comes to me, I will definitely not drive outside. Imagine if you're preaching that. Like, guys, this is not just a negative. This is a double negative, people. Jesus is saying this will not happen. See? That preaches, right? Understand?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Sure.
Yes. That's why I said don't preach from the New Testament without looking at what the Greek says. Okay? You might find this. Lege auto o Petros, ume se aparnezomai. Peter said to him, I will never deny you. So it's the more interesting, right? That Peter ended up denying Jesus. But when he refuses, he actually uses what? The double negative. So the emphatic negative future. So remember we said in the devotion that we have 85 examples of this in the New Testament. The double negative. Yeah. The emphatic negative future. Okay. That's the following words. We don't start from there. We at least start with the tense, right? We start with the mood, the voice, and then we go to where you are. Yeah. present.
Okay, let me get out.
You are again going back to what? So present, indicative, active, is present, subjunctive, active, first person plural, right? This is subjunctive, present, active, subjunctive, first person plural. How about this one? Cancels in. Is that a present? What is it? We don't have a future subjunctive, so that's what should alert you. And I thought someone would ask me, so how do we know the difference between the aorist subjunctive and the future subjunctive? There is no future subjunctive. So this is an aorist active subjunctive third person plural. You see, we say that we remove the augment, right? But the moment you see that it's not an indicative, therefore that means that you are no longer dealing with a future. Because remember, in other moods, we only have the aorist and the guys. Now, in the indicative, we have all the other moods, all the other tenses, right? But in the other moods, we only have the present and the aorist. The present and the aorist. So we only talk about the present subjunctive and the aorist subjunctive. We don't talk about the future subjunctive or the imperfect subjunctive or the perfect subjunctive. There is no such thing as a perfect subjunctive. Are we together? Okay. This thinking, people?
Yeah.
Yeah. How about this one? Ellen? That's a good. How about this one? No. Aorist. This is the present. Yeah.
Present. Subjective.
But the middle passive subjunctive third person plural. Jay? I'm surprised because it's not.
Active, passive. Subjunction.
It's as if you are saying Jane is both a man and a woman.
Active, passive, subjunctive.
It's passive subjunctive. So active doesn't feature there. Yeah, second singular. It goes in.
Yeah, right. Active. Subjunctive. Then plural.
Okay, take a screenshot. Anyway, I think that's okay. Let's, I'm gonna give you the assignment for this week. You do it here in class, together in the class. Refumo, can you hear us now? You are mute. Okay, you can hear us, but still not sound there. All right. You are free to leave and go do your assignment for this week, Refumo. The class, if you had sound, we would have allowed you to do it with the others here. But since you don't have sound, you can just go and do it yourself. It's already on the platform. Okay, you are dismissed. I'll send the recording.